think it was Andy Edwards. You know Andy? It's like he was on Beato. It's like a English commentator on music.
Andy Edwards. Never heard of him.
Hello and welcome to this video. Paul McCartney is one of the greatest living songwriters in the world. The word living denotes something. It denotes the fact that he's still around. Someone can sit down and have an interview with him now and they can pick his brains and ask him what it's like to be Paul McCartney, what it's like to be one of only two people surviving from the greatest, most important band in the history of mankind, the Beatles. You could sit down and ask him what that was like. And him being a thoughtful man and an incredible songwriter, he could also contemplate that as well. And he has on his latest album, which is called The Boys of Dungeon Lane. Now, I'm going to be reviewing this album on this video, but I didn't want to. As soon as the album came out, I thought, oh, new Paul McCartney album. But you know what happens with a new Paul McCartney album happens? What do I do about it? Absolutely nothing. I don't listen to it. I think the last one he did was McCartney 3. He went back to his, that thing where he plays all the instruments. I always like it when he does that. I like it when he plays everything. I haven't even heard that album. And I wouldn't have listened to this album. Except every time I put bloody YouTube on, somebody, and you know who you are because some of you watch my channel, you're reviewing it. So I started to watch these reviews. And I've got to be honest, I thought, well, maybe I should review it because, you know, well, just everyone else is, so why I better review it as well, you know, and so got 50,000 views reviewing it. Oh my God. I mean, it's an easy one to do, isn't it? It's not like doing a top 10. All I got to do is listen to the album and talk about it. But I got to be honest, I thought, I watched Barry Robinson's review over a classic album review, and I thought, I can't better that. I can't better it. And a lot of the people who were reviewing it, the other YouTubers, they're all going through the lyrics. They're going and interpreting the lyrics. Now, you know me, I don't listen to bloody lyrics. The last thing I'm going to do is listen to lyrics. Why would I want to listen to lyrics for when there's bloody cool funky bass lines and brilliant cool drumming and people playing and going inside and outside, lovely chords and harmonies? Now, I love the Beatles. Now, why do I love the Beatles? Because musically, they please my ears. That is what this channel is about. Musically, the Beatles please my ears. Stevie Wonder's pleases my ears. Bob Dylan, he don't please my ears. Bruce Springsteen, he doesn't please my ears. And one bloke that bloody offends my ears is Van Morrison, and that's the way it is. I listen to music, that's what I am. That is what makes this channel the best music YouTube channel in the world, because I actually talk about music and nobody else wants to, probably because they haven't got educated enough to do it. And I say this with, you know, with below the surface anger, because some bloke, after I went through the 10 artists I hate, came on here and he said, right, and it's got to be, not more than negative comments, they don't normally get to me, I find them really funny, but this bloke said something like, how dare you not like the music I like? It's obvious you've got no taste because you present yourself so badly and then you wear terrible clothes and you look like a mess. So why should we listen to you? Well, I was quite upset by that, and here I am this morning. I've got a very busy day on, a lot going on. But I'm behind on the old YouTube video, so here it is, easy one to do, review the Paul McCartney album. I haven't had a chance to shave or do any of that. I haven't had a chance to do my hair. I couldn't even grab a hat. So I have got a hat here, but every time I'm going to wear it because it bloody gets on people's nerves. Sodom, wear it, Andy. I used to wear this all the time, this hat, because I thought it made me look like bloody Lemmy. Right, so there you're happy now. My hair's at least not in view, and I've given some thought to what I look like. And that is about as much thought as I give. What's this got to do with Paul McCartney, you ask 4 minutes in? Well, I'm here doing the review, aren't I? What do you want from me? Talk about the album, but then I'd have to listen to the lyrics, wouldn't I? And I don't like listening to the lyrics, like I said. I'm lyric blind. I listen to the chords and the beats and the playing, right? And I like the Beatles, and I think Paul McCartney's amazing, an incredible composer. I love the melodies. I love all the twists and turns. What do you mean you don't listen to the lyrics? Well, this is the point. And this is my entree into this review. Because everyone's going on about it. And all the other YouTubers that I watch, you know. And I watch them because I just got to keep that one step ahead, haven't I? I've got to keep one step ahead of them. You know. So I'm watching them, and they're all doing a much better job than me reviewing this with their lyric listening and research that they like to do. So last night, I pulled my headphones out, and rather than just listening to Keith Jarrett or Pat Metheny like I would normally do as I go off into my sleep, I put the Paul McCartney album on. Right? It's playing on YouTube. First track comes on, As You Lie There. A great opener, I thought. Interesting McCartney-esque stuff going on musically, but un-McCartney-esque stuff going on. And an allusion almost to, sounds almost like French chanteurs with like a monologue. It reminded me of that Peggy Lee tune, Is That All There Is? And Is That All There Is? It had that aspect to me. And straight away, that way of doing it pulled me back into the past. Musically, it was pulling me back into the past. As You Lie There. What's the lyrics about? I don't know. Probably a girlfriend from the past that he's remembering. That's where most blokes start. Wonder what happened to her. I had a fumble with her, didn't I? Remember? On the field. I wonder if she thinks about that, because I'm still thinking about it. That's basically the subject. Have I got it right, that one? But musically, I was interested. He's pulled me in there with some cool McCartney stuff and some stuff that isn't like Paul McCartney. Then Lost Horizon came on. That was like the second track on the album. Right? That was nice. Didn't impinge on me. I'm saying this is one being truthful here. Right? I'm listening to this not with the review. I ain't going to review this album. I'm not going to review it. Just listen to it, enjoy it. Then, The Days We Left Behind came on. All right? Beautiful, middle of the road, sort of music you expect an 83-year-old to make, but pretty and nice songwriting. I can appreciate it. And that song, and this is the first thing I want to get across, a great song for me, it's a totally subjective this is, a great song for me, the lyrics sit on the little boat of beautiful music. And they come towards you sometimes, and the beautiful boat of music presents to you the lyric. And in this case, it's halfway through. I start to get this idea where he said, I can remember the lyric. I can remember it even though I've only listened to it because it upset me. It moved me, the lyric did. He said something like, don't cry about the past. It's not, you shouldn't worry about the what. I was emotionally affected by it. Now, after that one, we get ripples in the pond. Or ripples in a pond, and that's like the lives we live, you know, the people we meet, you know, and all these things, and we all worry about it, don't we? We all worry about it, or do we? So this album is now playing, and my mind goes off, and it's enjoy the music, but it's thinking all this stuff, and I get to the point I'm thinking, oh, this is a lot of thinking I've done, Andy. There's something else in here you could do a YouTube video about. What are you thinking about? And what I'm thinking about is being old. That's what I'm thinking about. Because Paul McCartney's brilliant album here, because this is a bloody brilliant album, right? This album set me off. That's all I ask from an album, is to move me and make me think. Advance me in my aesthetic awareness, which means my moral awareness of the world, to a different place. Hopefully a place that makes me feel a little bit better about things. And this album did it. And in that moment I thought, I don't want to review this album. It's bloody brilliant. It's by Paul McCartney. Right? Now, A reviewer could come on and say all the things he doesn't do, right? And that's what a review is. That's what a negative review is. And the thing is when that bloke has a go at me about making my hate videos, what he doesn't understand is my channel, I hope, is a little more broader than that. That's pure entertainment. That is watching a bloke of my age and seeing those prejudices. They need to be shown as much as me actually listening to something properly and trying to be as open and humane. Now, certain people out there complain about us YouTubers because they think we're clickbaity, and we are. Why are we clickbaity? Because we want to have the audience. Why do we want to have the audience? Fundamentally, so we do have that audience there to talk to, because it's a power. Now, certain people, especially those on the left, they don't like power, but it is a power. I know I have a power now with this channel. And I know that after a couple of videos I've just brought out, which have got a big audience, the channel is rocking along. I could now do even more of those, grab that audience and make my channel go up. But actually I'm doing something which is a much more artistically valid, those critics of me, right? I may be badly presented, but I'm utilising that to talk about something here that I felt listening to this album, which I want to impart with you, and it's going to be a bloody video. This is, in fact, I'll pull the chair up a little bit closer to you. I wanted to set back so you couldn't see my unshaved face and badly kept, you know, bad presentation I've got of my visual thing, you know. He's upset me. We were all insecure, aren't we? And you get to a certain age, don't you? And your looks go. My looks are going like bloody so fast now. It's all awful. Every time I look at myself in the mirror, I say, well, who the hell's that bloke? Especially if I get up in the night, you know, and I've just got me, say, underpants on because it's hot. And I go to the toilet, look in the mirror, oh my God, what the hell's that? And it's funny because when you're young, you worry about your looks, but you don't realise what you've got, do you, until it's gone. That's an aspect of me at the moment. But what's much stronger is the ongoing awareness of my mortality. All right? That's there all the time now. Every creaky bone, every negative thought, every time I look back like Paul McCartney's looking back now. I'm looking back on quite a lot of life, but not as much as Paul McCartney. Paul McCartney is a man, a creative man, one of our greatest songwriters of all time, and he's an 83-year-old bloke. So I may be thinking, I hope I've got 10, 20 years left to do what I want to do. He's probably going, I hope I've got 2 years left. Mortality comes up on us. This is a bloody serious thing. Young people don't get it, right? Now, when you review this, I believe that most of the criticisms you could have about this album is because a young person hasn't made it. This is what it is. This is one of our best songwriters singing about being really old. Not old like I am, not late middle age. I'm talking about properly old, in your 80s. Ringo Starr's on this album. He's got to back together with Ringo. It's bloody brilliant. Half the Beatles back together. But Ringo is 86, same age as my mom. My mom's 86. I go around to my mom's because recently I've been going around a lot because I've been on Ancestry.com doing all the DNA. Right? I'm 20% from the Himalayan Kush, I am. Punjabi, mate. Or Afghan or something like that. Can't quite work it out. It's hard to work it out. But anyway, you know, I've been going back, asking my mum about people. She'd been pulling out these little black and white photographs. And I'm going, Mum, tell me. I didn't care when I was young, but you've got to tell me the facts. Because once you're gone, and you're 86 years old, you could be gone tomorrow. Let's be fair. He didn't say that to her. Yes, I bloody did. You know, she could be gone. She could be dead now. That would be ironic, wouldn't it? And when she's gone, she's gone. We can't ask John Lennon stuff. We can't ask George Harrison stuff. We can't ask Miles Davis stuff. We can't. They're gone. And because they're superstars, because they're brilliant musicians, their music lives on, but they're gone. They become mythic. But Paul McCartney's still here. I watched an interview with him this morning. He's talking like a normal bloke. He's got all his black and white photographs spread out in front of him, and he's looking at them. It's making him think stuff. But he's not a normal bloke, is he? He's been able to, like, appear like he's a normal bloke, but he's not a normal bloke. He's not a normal bloke, Paul McCartney isn't. Not in any way, shape or form. So when you put this album on, I respond to it because it's an old man looking back, right? That's the central thing. That's the theme of this album. He's looking back. And he's looking back because he's aware that most of the stuff he's done is done. And he's tried to weigh that, and he's tried to come to some sort of peace, I suppose. Right? He's a brilliant songwriter, so he can negotiate through this quite depressing subject matter in a way that's poignant, at some points entertaining. There's a strong meaning. There's not a concept album, but I noticed as the album progressed, by the time we got to, I think it was Salesman's Saint, I think, or First Star of the Night, suddenly this orchestra appears and we hear the music pre-Beatles. We hear the music of Paul's youth in this sort of big band sort of show number. And then after that, we go back again to an orchestral part. So I felt the structure was taking me on this story. But what is the story? Right, 15 minutes in. That's my statement of how I'm going to approach this review. Most YouTube reviewers are done now. They say, so that's the album, good effort by Paul McCartney, blah, blah, blah. But I'm going to tell you my thought process. It was like this. Paul McCartney is one of our greatest songwriters. You've said all that, Andy. He's made this album, okay? And he's made a good album. Everyone thinks it's a good album. We listened to this album because it's Paul McCartney. Here we are all listening to it. But we're not all listening to it. It's us old people that are listening to it. Why? Because the Beatles mean so much to us. Why do the Beatles mean so much to us? Well, you've got to be pretty old to be pre-Beatles. That period before the Beatles is now passed into myth. Right? The Beatles getting together and being kids, it's like 70 years ago. There was a point when I was a kid that you could go out and find people in your own town that had fought in the First World War. And then that slowly moved into myth. And now there's nobody. There's nobody. And now we're looking at the Second World War. And people who fought in the Second World War are 100 years old. And at some point that will move into myth. As the Second World War moves into myth, then the next thing is the beginnings of rock and roll. And everyone of my age, right, and this is a big swathe of people, grew up in the period of rock and roll. And for some of us, it was so all-powerful that it really shapes our life to a huge degree. I am an example of that. Here I am before you with a YouTube channel, and I know what I peddle here is talking about that period. I will talk about it seriously, and I will concentrate on the musical aspects a little bit more, which has never really happened during that period. And I will critique, which is why I go on about these hate videos. It's not about the artists, it's about the fact that the critics love them, and I will try and readjust the viewpoint a little bit here. Right, so readjust the viewpoint, get you to think about it another way so that you can go back and look at the music of your youth or whatever it is, or whatever you listen to now based upon what you liked, and all these types of things. We can get a different viewpoint because it's really, really important. And there's nothing more all-encompassing than the Beatles. How many times do I start on a top 10 of, proper ultimate top 10 knowing that we're just moving towards the Beatles at the top? It's an incredible achievement. Now Paul McCartney's doing it, and he again is getting to see it from his point of view. Is this song about George Harrison? Is this song about John Lennon? This must be about when they went on that hitchhiking holiday and that happened and this happened. All this stuff's mythical, isn't it? But it's not, because it's just all so ordinary. But it's in ordinariness that is gone. It's the ordinariness that my mum and dad talk about, about what it was like coming home, trying to light a fire, toilet outside, sharing a bedroom with two other people, a life which he is looking back with nostalgia, but through the eyes of a multi-millionaire. And there's songs about this, right? About how basic it was back then. The black and white sort of post-war, playing in bomb craters, childhood that these people had of this era. And then when they got to the 60s, they go, we don't want this. We want colour. We want it to be all exciting. And that wanting things to be exciting and different was embodied by the Beatles. Elvis Presley came out, who was like half film star, half black American artist, if you see what I mean. He comes out and they love it, but he's actually a relic of the period before. Now, it's the Beatles that they represent the new in every single shape and form. The fact that it'll be a guitar-based group, that's the technology, okay? The fact that they're British, so they're appropriating American music forms, but changing it based upon a narrative that comes from Britain. The fact that they're cheeky lads, they're not particularly good looking, but they're cheeky and they got charisma. And what they do is they appear in the early 60s in that black and white world. They go and make Hard Day's Night. And Hard Day's Night is like a British comedic French New Wave film. It's bloody groundbreaking. I think if they hadn't had that film, we might not have had the Beatles. Because then these kids have to start to think in terms of film soundtracks. And the track of Hard Day's Night is almost like the door to opening to the realm of rock. Because of a film. Because they're all running around like John Paul Belmondo, but actually they're cheeky Liverpudlians. You know, and they're actually sitting to, you know, having a chat with Steptoe. Right? The following film is psychedelic colour. It's overwhelming. The Beatles take us from monochrome to Technicolor. That's what they did. Musically and aesthetically, that's what they did. And it was real people. Elvis went from monochrome to Technicolor, but that's because he was a film star. They were all untouchable. Right? When you watch The Girl Can't Help It with Jane Mansfield, it's cartoonish. When Little Richard appears, or Gene Vincent or Eddie Cochran, they're untouchable. The Beatles were untouchable. And when the Beatles appear in America on the Ed Sullivan Show, or whatever it is, 64, everyone looks at them and goes, oh my God, this is me. These kids don't want it. We've got a new way to do this. They can't see it. And at that point, these regular kids, because if you're not going to get this as eloquently if the guys of the Rolling Stones do it, because they're all middle class. Jimmy Page is middle class. Eric Clapton, they're all middle class. It's not poignant. They can't get down in the dirt. They can't go back to this sort of, you know, violent, alcoholic dads, you know. And the thing is, this world that they grow up with, and especially for Paul McCartney and John Lennon, a motherless world. A motherless world. How powerful does it make this band? You know. So, Paul McCartney lives in this sort of normal, almost cliched British idea of the 1950s, this black and white, you know, skiffle playing, you know, we ain't got no instruments, I'm going to have to play the spoons, you know, that world that they're in, the world of my parents. My dad's dead, my mum's 86, he's turning into myth. So this starts to become poignant. This starts to become a window of something that we know we're about to lose. And so it becomes magical. Paul McCartney's memories, he's 83 years old, his memories, he's now at that age where kids would go, what was it like, Grandad, back in the 1950s? Do you remember the dinosaurs, you know? What was it like when they got rid of slavery? It's all that type of things going on. And we're all going along with him. We're all travelling with him, right? But in 1963, 64, which is literally now over 60 years ago, his life completely changed. He was taken out of the world, and we've still been in it. And so I think part of this album is that comparison. How much can he, by going back to that point, connect with us? And not connect with us like the big millionaire. I don't mean it like that. I mean connect with us as the great songwriter that he is. Can he actually provide a service to people of a certain age in taking all these feelings and calming the anxieties that those feelings promote? Now, it's very easy to go, Paul McCartney's a multi-millionaire. Have you seen the bloody recording studio this was recorded in? He bought some bloody 15th century windmill or something and converted it into a ridiculous studio up on the top of a hill somewhere. That's Paul McCartney's studio. How many houses has he got? I mean, this is the elites, isn't it? It's what I go on about. And There's this guy called Andrew Watt, and he seems to be the go-to guy. He's 36 years old. He's the go-to guy. If you're an old fogey, you go to him to sort of produce it and at least turn out something which will operate in the modern world. He's a new, hip, trendy producer, but he's a trendy producer for the oldies, okay? And he's there, and I'm like going, how the hell's he got this bloody gig? Paul could have me there. I can produce, I can play all the instruments. Don't want me there, does he? Nah. I mean, he could watch my chat. Can you imagine if Paul McCartney, even if he just watched 3 minutes of a video, I would feel blessed. But Paul McCartney, if you are watching this, then why not get me in to produce it? I would love to produce it, because if I've got one criticism of this album, it's the production. That's my only criticism. Everything else is amazing. But the thing is, he's trying to land an album in the contemporary climate. And what is wrong with all the music at the moment is production. Why? Because the production is out of control. The idea, that you are going to hone your image, right, so much using digital technology. This is the thing that is ruining everything. Right, this is a human story, but production-wise, I can't quite get to it. We know his voice is shot. Paul McCartney's voice is shot, but it doesn't sound so shot in here. Why? Because they've had a producer there doing all sorts of stuff. He's playing drums. Paul McCartney's playing drums on most of this. Ringo comes on, I think, and plays on one track. It sounds like a machine, doesn't it? It does sound like a machine. These are all the musical things I'm noticing. So I'm listening to it, and I'm loving it because I love Paul McCartney's songwriting. I'm loving the music. The lyrics are coming through to me, though, because the beautiful music is bringing them my way. But I'm sensing a little bit of a lack of humanity in the production. And I want it. It's like I crave it so bad. I crave it. Right? I want to hear Paul, warts and all. I want to hear that humanity. Maybe it doesn't exist anymore. Maybe it is all so polished. It is just so polished. That's naturally the way it is. Why do I want to connect with Paul McCartney? That's the thing. Why do I want to connect? Why, if I was producing this, I would have got the bloody squeak of the bass drum pedal in there. I would have got the way, I would not have the songs just coming out of the ether. They would come out of reality. Everything would be real. I would want to feel that it's just Paul McCartney in there playing everything, and I want to hear it. I know what that sounds like. And when all the bloody guests that appear on here, and God, is there some guests on here? And these are people, it's like they've got like bloody Charles Martin, George Martin's son. I was in a lift with him the other day. When I went down to Babbly Road, he was in there. I was in a lift with him. He's been arranging some of the orchestras. You've got Ben Foster conducting. You've got Charlene Spittery from that Scottish band. She's on backing vocals alongside Chrissy Hyde, You got Nancy McCartney doing some spoken word. You got Mike Davis. You got Mike Davis on trumpet. I thought you got Miles Davis on trumpet. I thought bloody, he's a rich man. Maybe he'd be able to bring him back from the dead. You'll be facetious now. Ringo Starr is on tambourine and on drums on what? So there's a few people on there, but on the whole, this is Paul. It's been played into a digital audio. I didn't want to say anything negative. I didn't plan to say this. But there is a veneer that stops me wanting to connect with Paul McCartney. And that was, I analysed my feelings listening to this album and wanted to watch him. I want him to be that bloke that they all saw before I was born, don't I? I want him to still be that regular bloke. I can't take his songwriting unless he's that regular bloke. He's got to prove, and he's proving it here, you see. I want to be connected to Paul McCartney. We all, of my age, want to be connected to it because it connects us to our life. In connecting to him and channeling down this thing, how much the production I might like, how much it's, it's a little bit middle of the road. Most old people do middle of the road things, don't they? That's what they do. Don't mind that. Maybe that's a part of it. Maybe there's a sort of sentimentality to it in that middle of the roadness that gives it the feeling of looking back. I love it. I love this album. It's a great album. buy it, do whatever you want. It's a great album. Stick it on and listen to it. Don't buy it if you're young. You won't get it. You've got to be old. You've got to have a chance that you might die right now to appreciate this album. Right? That's what it's about. But this connection, my mind went on to this connection. He's going back to the past. John Lennon's gone. He's been gone 46 years. George Harrison's gone. He's been gone 25 years. They're in old age, Ringo and him. He's going back to all this stuff and all these things are coming through. And then out of nowhere, my brain thought, yeah, but there's one bloke that's not coming through, isn't he? Pete Best. Remember Pete Best? So I Googled, you know, I thought, I wonder if Paul's ever sat down with Pete Best and because they did sack him in a bad situation, you see. And I've been in bands and I know what happened. The truth is this. George, John and Paul McCartney were in a band together. And I know what it's like to be in a band together. Right? You're friends with them, but you're not really that friends with them. Your connection's different when you're in a band. And that suddenly hit me. It hit me as I was listening to it. I was thinking, well, I was in bands with people for a long time ago. And there is a connection there. But many of these people, if you're not making music together, because that's why you are together, once you stop making music together, it stops. You know, John and George did have a link. There is a link, and this is explored here. They were friends. But the experience of the Beatles when they came out of it, yeah, they'd be acquaintances. He's been able to ring, you know, I'm sat there thinking, oh, he must have Ringo's number still then to be able to ring him up. I wonder if Paul McCartney rang him up and said, Ringo, hello, Paul, how are you? I'm all right. Do you want to come play on my album? Yeah, that'd be bloody brilliant. I'll come and do that. It'd be like half the Beatles getting together. Well, whatever, you know, and that's what I want to be the case, but I'm aware of going there. But these, even when you form bands with friends, the experience of being in that band and what you go through changes it. Now, at some point in 1960, they got the call to go to Hamburg. And that is when they needed a drummer. And there was a club in Liverpool that they played at. And the woman who owned that club and ran it, her son was Pete Best. Pete, do you want to come in and join the band? He goes off, him and Stuart Sutcliffe goes off to Hamburg, right? They're in Hamburg at that point in 1960. Stu Sutcliffe is like this mythical character in the Beatles because he's the artsy-fartsy one. He even seems to be a little bit more ahead of John Lennon in terms of that, is there a leader, right? But he dies, he dies, he's, you know, and that, so he's gone. And what did the band do? They don't give up because he's an acquaintance, really. He's just a guy in the band. This is the reality of bands. Eventually, by 62, they get into the recording studio. And when they get in there, right, and I've listened to the recordings and I will attest to this, Pete Best was not up for the job. So what they did is they went to Brian Epstein and said, Brian, George Martin says we've got to get rid of the drummer. Now, they could have gone, we're not doing that. We'll have a deal with someone else. We'll be honourable to our friend. They didn't. They didn't. Because when you're young, you are not like this. And this, as I was listening to the album, when I started to think about Pete Best, there was the opposite dialectic turned up. I thought, young people aren't like this. All they care about is their future. They want to be in the biggest band in the world. They'll do anything. That's when you'll do anything to get there. You know, he's looking back on it all nostalgic, but it wasn't like that. Think what you're like with your friends when you're young. You just existed. You haven't got all this bloody, oh, wasn't it wonderful going down the lane, you know, and kissing that girl. And it's not like that when you're young. It's not like that. Now, where do we go? There's two lines of exploration here. In me going to Ancestry.com, there is something very apparent because my kid's granddad, i.e. my wife's dad, as I've mentioned before, was a guy called Peter Wynne. Now, Peter Wynne is around about, well, he was 5 years older than the Beatles. He actually was a singer and was signed, major label deal, in the late 50s. He was a pre-rock and roll musician, in that he was a singer that had grown up listening to people like Mario Lanza, David Whitfield. He had a big operatic voice. He got discovered on a talent show by Huey Green, and he got signed up to Larry Parnes's. And Larry Parnes had a roster of musicians which are pre-Beatles, people like Billy Fury and Marty Wilde. They all had these strange names. Peter Wynne would not have the name that Larry Parnes gave him. In fact, he fought Larry Parnes' direction a little bit. But in 1960, Larry Parnes put this tour together in the United Kingdom, and it's one of the key tours in terms of the creation of bands like the Beatles and the Stones and the whole thing. You know, another one would be where they brought Muddy Waters. There was a soul review that came out in the mid-60s. These events of the Americans coming over. And in 1960, Larry Parnes brought Gene Vincent and Eddie Cochran over. And they put a show together which also had Billy Fury on it. It had Gene Vincent, Eddie Cochran. It had singers like Johnny Gentle on it. It had Duffy Power. This was the stable. And my granddad, Peter Wynne. Peter Wynne, my granddad, was there when Eddie Cochran got in that car. In fact, Gene Vincent pushed my granddad, my stepfather, sorry, my kid's granddad, out of the car. And Gene Vincent jumped in, they went off, and Eddie Cochran was killed. Now, if it had happened the other way, my kids wouldn't be here now, and my life would be completely different. Now, why am I going on about this? Because in 1960, the Beatles, with Pete Best, when they were called the Silver Beatles, went and auditioned for Larry Parnes to be the backing band. It was for a Scottish tour. Now, if you go to the official records, and I've gone through AI this morning, that there was a number of singers, I think it was Billy Fury, Marty Wilde and Johnny Gentle were the singers that the Beatles auditioned for. And Larry Parnes decided to put together for a Scottish tour the Beatles with Johnny Gentle. And they went and did this. And this is one of the first things the Beatles ever did. It's a big moment for the Beatles. Now, it's not on this album. Or is it? I don't know. But this must have been a big deal for Paul McCartney. Because you're on a Larry Parnes tour. This is bigger than Hamburg. This is bigger than a whole bunch. And you've got Johnny Gentle, who was a signed pop star. And you're backing them up. They did this tour. My father-in-law then did the next Scottish tour. He didn't do the Beatles tour. Now, if you look online and look at everything that's out there, and this is the thing I'm bringing to this video here, it will say that's because he was never offered to Pete. But Pete told me when he was alive, it was offered to him. And that the Beatles came and said, do you want to do this tour in Scotland? Right? That came to him. And he heard them, and he turned around and went, no, you're not good enough. His band at the time had, he had two floating drummers, the best in the business, Clem Catini and Brian, what's the name from the Shadows? What's his name? Can't remember. He got Licorice Locking on bass, Big Jim Sullivan on guitar, and a very young Georgie Fame. He'd got the cream. And this band weren't that good. Now, that could have well been about Pete, because of Pete Best, because when you haven't got a good drummer, it's not a good band. And my father-in-law would have known that. So he, as far as he's concerned, he turned them down. But he also told me that the Beatles had seen him on that tour, and they were fans, especially George Harrison. Now, I'm telling you stuff that he told me. Now, about 4 years ago, Pete died. He was in his 80s. Now he's gone. And when things like this happen, I can't ring him up anymore and say, what actually happened there? And every time he'd sit down, he'd tell you these new stories. You know, he'd tell me about, doing this tour with his midget. Sorry, oh God, dwarf. I've used the M word. I do apologise to any short people out there. This is because I'm old. You know, I've said the bad word. And you've got to believe, I mention small people on my channel quite a lot, and I've always been able to avoid saying that. I do apologise. What can I say? I apologise. I really apologise. This dwarf fella, this little fella that he was toying with, I think Pete hid his bottle of whiskey that he had, and so he attacked him with a knife, had him at knife point, that scared the living daylights out. And Gene Vincent also had him at knife point on the bus when they were touring round. And Gene Vincent got his knife out and he stuck it up, you know, against Pete, and Pete said that he said, say hello to Henry. Gene Vincent had a name for his knife. His knife was called Henry. I'm telling you stuff that Pete told me. Could be true, could not. But what made me think, as I thought, Pete's gone, my dad's gone, my mum's still here, my wife's mum's still here, and she works in London at the same time. So you can still have, these people are going, and we are connecting to them. And in this case, I can actually see if the Beatles had, if Beatles history had been different, I'm pretty sure that my kids wouldn't be there, my wife wouldn't have existed. Why would that happen, Andy? Well, she might have, because Pete would have just carried on, wouldn't he? So she might have existed, yeah. But it's that sliding doors thing. Yeah, she could still exist, even if my father-in-law had performed with the Beatles, the whole history, all this history could have changed. That's my point. And it could have changed. It's like bloody Back to the Future, isn't it? Sliding doors. Now, I believe that the reason why music's really powerful, and it's something people don't understand, is because actually we're all directly connected to it. We're all connected to Paul McCartney. He seems other. The reason why he seems other is because of the Mount Olympus that's created by, or was created by the entertainment industry back then. And the Beatles represented the move away from that. But stardom was still stardom. Once you were a millionaire rock star, you were divorced away, but you're not really. You're connected in. And the reason why this is compelling is because of where Paul came from and the story he's telling. And the thought that I had was, and it was comforting in a way, as I listened to this album, I thought, here we all are, we're all old. He's way older than me, but we were all old, and I'm listening to this album, and it's moving me. You know, don't shed a tear about the past. Even though it's gone, don't mourn it. It's natural. Things carry on. That very simple message wafts over me with all this lovely songwriting music, and that goes into me, and I feel like I don't want to review this album. I don't want to say anything bad about it. Don't want to say anything bad about it, because it's moved me. Paul McCartney can still do it, if you want to say that, but it's not really about that, is it? And all this rush of thoughts and ideas had come to me because of this music. That's how art works. It's unbelievably powerful. And then after thinking all the thoughts, I thought, if things had been different, because I know I'm connected to the Beatles in this really obtuse, obscure, historic way, but there is a connection there. Because of that, realising that his future may have changed my future, then you realise that what the Beatles did changed everybody's future. And we're actually all connected to Paul McCartney. We're actually all connected. I'm not just saying because the Beatles were famous. I'm saying that there's a network that comes out of music, of people. And that network meshes us together. Now, why am I saying this? It's because I've been doing Ancestry.com. I've been looking at my family tree. Now, there was always a rumour in my family that we were descended from a man called Sir Syed Ahmed Khan, who was a Muslim scholar in the Victorian period. And he played a great part in the creation of Pakistan as a country. This has always been a rumour. never been able to prove it. Then the world changes. You have DNA, and I've done this ancestry, you've got the DNA. And I clicked on my DNA, and my DNA went across to this woman, Muslim woman, and I clicked on her, and I looked at her dad, and her dad was the brother of Sir Ahmed Khan. Thus proving that that was the case, that the family history, the stuff we couldn't prove, that connection there is now proved, I think. That was quite a shock to me. And I thought, this must be true of everyone. It's just we don't know it. Human beings, we're connected in. We're connected by blood. We're connected by culture. We're connected by beliefs. We're connected by experience. And once you understand that and really can focus on it, you start to see how art and music can actually shape that and change the future. And it changes the ethical and moral structure of the future. It's incredibly powerful. It's incredibly powerful. Now, part of the reason why Paul McCartney can do this is because he's a genius songwriter. The other reason is because he's a multimillionaire. He's Paul McCartney. But my channel, I want to really try and get across on here. I really want to try and get across to people how important music is, how important art is, and how it's changing. So, my age group is beginning to see how the period that we grew in is passing and it's going away like that. And it's sad. And every single YouTube video we watch by all those YouTubers who are analysing it, and they're doing a brilliant job of it, but it's really rooted in that sadness that, you know, we are celebrating the dregs of this memory as it goes away. And it's very easy for everything I say or anybody else that does these sort of middle-aged music YouTubing to, it's very easy to go, yeah, but you're just old and things change. Music's just as good nowadays. It's just you don't get it. It always happens. It's a natural process, right? And that's true, but it's not good enough, is it? It's not good enough. You don't feel right. No, we're losing something of value. Well, the truth is both of those things are happening. So how do you square that? How do you get that into a place where you can deal with it? How do you get this dialectic of, yeah, it's just the way things are. Things are always like that. Music comes along and the old music dies away and it was once amazing. Now nobody cares. The kids will have their own music. So, no, Led Zeppelin and bloody the Beatles and Black Sabbath and Babbage Structure, Miles Davis, they're all actually amazing. And the modern music's not like it. You don't want to, we're losing something. We're losing some humanity, expression. And he was saying it earlier about the production. Even the production just takes away humanity. We're losing something. We're losing something. All this AI music. No, it's the way it should be. The way it should be. No, it's all terrible. Once AI comes out, it's going to be all ruined. You can't have a living even making music anymore. Doesn't matter. You don't need to because AI will just make the music people want to listen to. You don't understand that. And that fundamentally is the very stuff of everything that I'm doing and everything everyone else is doing. What Paul McCartney does on here is he goes, come on, chaps. Just for an instant, don't cry about the past. You know, our lives are like a pebble thrown into a lake and the ripples go out. And you hope the ripples go out for longer than... But in the end, they hit the bank and they dissipate. Don't cry about it. It's natural. It's the way of things. But let's celebrate it and love it at the same time. How, Paul? I'll try my best to show you. That is my review. Might not be the best review. I might not have gone through the lyrics and given you all the facts and figures and gone through every track and named it all and given you all my sort of intellectual thoughts on it. You know, it might not be that, but it's bloody longer than anyone else's.